I'm very excited for this best of 3 series of StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a match between two of my absolute favorite pro gamers historically. The only problem is that for the most part, the both of them are retired. This particular match is from a tournament that is literally called the Boomer Bash. Organized by Wardy, it is open to, well, current pro gamers, but also pro gamers from back in the day that are over the whopping age of 28. Boomer confirmed. Now, spawning right here in the bottom right-hand corner, this is exactly what I thought when somebody sent me these replays. We're looking at none other than Scarlett's main hatchery, and then her opponent all the way in the top left with the red Zerg drones. He goes by the name of TLO. Now, if you've been watching StarCraft for a long time, you will be very familiar with both of these players. Obviously, Scarlett, the much more recent pro gamer. I mean, I believe she still plays this game quite a lot, so she's certainly the favorite going into this particular match. TLO, however, this is one of... So I remember watching TLO as like a new and, you know, and a StarCraft fan way back in the day in like 2010. TLO was one of the very first, like, big StarCraft names in the StarCraft universe when this game first released during the beta as well. It's been quite a long time. They're so old that they still play the race that doesn't exist anymore. Hey, very nice. A little bit of edginess as well going on in the observer chat. So Wardy, by the way, the tournament organizer, he gave me the go-ahead to go already cast these games because this tournament is actually currently ongoing. But yeah, I'm very excited to find out exactly what ended up going down between these two. So, TLO, it stands for The Little One. He's a German player. These days, he's actually the team manager for the Shopify Rebellion, so still working in esports. TLO, though, is also somebody who seems to be very good at any game that he just picks up. So, you know how, like, he was always known as a very creative player? You know how there's, like, gamers out there that just play a game for, like, 2 hours and they suddenly appear to be pretty much at Grandmaster level? TLO is very much so somebody from that realm. So even though he may not play a lot of StarCraft anymore these days, and maybe he is a little bit of a boomer, right? I believe he's, like, 33 years old or something. Actually, let me check his Wikipedia page. He's 34! Ugh. Practically ancient. He will I'm only 32. He's way older than me. He's still going to be very formidable. Now, Scarlett, obviously, somebody who's been competing at the highest level for a very long time. I'm not entirely sure what she's been up to recently. I know she was working on some game design at some point, and she's been doing some programming, if I'm not mistaken. Still, though, somebody who has competed at the absolute highest level much more recently than TLO. So, I'm assuming Scarlett, I mean, she should certainly be the one winning this particular match. Although it's TLO, so you never really know. TLO is a bit of a crazy man. Let's see. So far, nothing all too weird, although a much quicker third hatchery here for Scarlett. TLO opening up with a quick... Well, what are we going to build here? Yeah, just a good old Baneling nest. So we have some corner cutting, at least on Scarlett's end of the map, but nothing all too extreme. She can still certainly go for a Baneling nest of her own if she wants to. Now, keep in mind, this is ZVZ, so even though this is an exciting match, it is also one of those games that can just be over in a heartbeat, because Zerg versus Zerg is extremely volatile. Even at the absolute highest level of StarCraft, the games can still last like 2 minutes. Well, we've already made it until nearly the 4-minute mark, so we should be good. Back in the day, actually, people would always tell me that, like, StarCraft pro gamers would be forced to retire because of old age at like 26 years old. This was literally the sentiment in the early days of StarCraft 2, that players would just be too slow. Now, the reason for that is because all of the top-tier pro gamers were from Korea, especially in StarCraft 1. They still are from Korea. And Koreans have a mandatory military service that they have to fulfill. Most of them start before they turn about 27. So, because of that, I guess a lot of people were like, yo, correlation equals causation. As far as I've noticed, though, a lot of the top-tier StarCraft pro gamers these days, they've completed their military service and came back to the game. And they're still extremely quick. It is certainly not a physical limitation. No. TLO going for a big attack. Banelings are now finishing up, morphing on the other side of the map. Scarlett decides to evacuate the third. A lot of pro gamers do get wrist issues. TLO, likewise, also somebody who did get wrist issues way back in the day, which has sadly forced some gamers into retirement. But I mean, That is something that can technically be managed. This is a nice attack from him, though. I really don't mind this spot for TLO whatsoever. Drones are going to finish up for both players now, but obviously TLO has a third hatch. Scarlett kills one drone, maybe two drones? No, just the one. Good control. Not bad whatsoever. Now hunting down this pack of Zerglings. I think you probably want to hide the Banes here, but that's okay. Hoping for a lucky hit, and it looks like these Lings in blue may just be cornered. TLO is doing great. Not bad whatsoever. A Roach follow-up has now occurred. Roach speed +1, all of it is coming. In that regard, TLO is a little bit behind. But TLO has effectively forced Scarlett into now a 2-base all-in. Scarlett going into the classic +1/+1 Roach speed. I'm assuming, though, judging by the timing of this upgrade, that we will see an attempt at a third hatchery again. Obviously, TLO will have the defender's advantage. Oh, no. I think this is actually totally fine here for TLO. Scarlett decides to go straight into an infestation pit. I'm not exactly sure what the plan of an infestation pit is. I mean, you can make infestors, you can go into hive. Lurkers are phenomenal and all that, but you really need, I mean, preferably 4-base economy. TLO actually droning up accordingly. I mean, maybe he could have squeezed out a few more, but obviously that's me saying that while I can see exactly what Scarlett has. TLO dealing with very incomplete information. Scarlett has decided that basically the best way to now approach this is just by sitting back from a bit of a deficit. She's going to test the waters with 1-1 finishing up and Roach speed as well. TLO should be able to defend this, though, with relative ease. It's just going to be infestors. So 2 infestors, maybe for like a money fungal? Not a bad idea. Big group of Zerglings going across. Honestly, if TLO can snipe the third hatchery again, that is pretty much the equivalent of him winning the game. That would force a complete all-in out of Scarlett. And considering TLO has been making a lot of army for a long time already, he should be able to defend whatever. Overlord drop coming up. Maybe we'll drop some Banelings or some Roaches, something along those lines. Scarlett going straight into the gas over here at the third base. Now, TLO probably should have made another group of drones a little sooner. Yeah, now we're starting to add them into the mix, but the main base has not been fully saturated, and I think that may have been a bit of a misread. I think if TLO would have completed his mineral saturation in the main base, so like +5 drones all this time, this would have been a tremendous advantage for him. Right now, the window is starting to close. Yeah, Scarlett actually playing this very intelligently, but also she's taking a big gamble, because this could have gone horribly wrong. So basically, she's been faking that she's gonna go for a big push, that she's going for some sort of committed 2-base all-in, all the while making a third hatchery and sneaking out drones. Doing a push with Roaches, but then going back home again. It's a lot of fake outs. And it's clearly worked right here against TLO, who's now actually finding himself at a bit of a deficit again. Now, TLO has decided to smash his piggy bank by going into a Spire. This is now turning into one of those very strange games, though, where both players have got a lot of army. And both of them are trying their very best to, like, you know, be sneakier than the opponent. Not easily done. Baneling drop, indeed, is going to be the weapon of choice. Drones get pulled away. Yeah, this isn't 2010 anymore, TLO. Players have very quick reaction speeds. I mean, to be fair, that was already a thing as well in the early days of StarCraft 2. Although it's sometimes fun to look back at the old VODs. Even if you look at StarCraft from like 5 years ago, the skill level really does still continuously go up. And it has been, ever since the game first came out. Okay. Yeah, so the weird thing about this game now is that both players have a huge army, but neither of them really has committed to a fight. And they're not, like, it's difficult at this point to guesstimate exactly what the state of the game is. So Scarlett wants to go into what seems to be Lurkers here eventually. I'm assuming at least we're gonna build up a hive. She's already got 3 infestors, full of energy. 4th one now coming up too. Fungal growth is nice, but honestly against the opponent's Roaches, it's not really that great of a push. TLO sending out a swarm of Overlords. I think we're gonna spread him. I remember TLO used to do this sort of thing by spreading the Overlords using the arrow keys on his keyboard. The only pro gamer that I've ever heard of that actually used the arrow keys to scroll the minimap. I'm not sure if that's what we witnessed right there just now. Generally considered to be kind of a garbage play. We have bailing speed and everything. I think TLO, okay, I think what's going on in this match is TLO was fully assuming the opponent was going to go for an all-in because she was behind, and then Scarlett just sort of never came. So she just sat back and hang out and, you know, making a... The fungal growths are going to be really nice for slowing down any advancement. If you can get a fungal on the banelings, for example, that's going to make the game way easier. Lurker's coming up for Scarlett in a moment, though. And that's going to be a massive power spike. All right. TLO needs to commit. He does commit right now. Let's see if there's enough, though. Fungals are going to be so critical. Obviously, fungal, though, is not a full route anymore like it used to be back in the day, so you can still sort of micro against it. The slowdown is still substantial, though. The Infestors, now also being aided, of course, by the Queens and the Spine Crawlers and all the rest of it. Hatchery already falls. Problem here for TLO, though, is that he doesn't have a Lurker transition coming up. But what he does have is just an awful lot of stuff. So he's sending another, like, 50 supply worth of roaches, well, across the map in a moment. Scarlett, though, also now spending her bank. She starts building up the ranged upgrade for the Lurkers. Yeah, I think, honestly, so this is looking to me like a Scarlett win now again. But after quite a significant advantage for TLO. So this looks to me more or less like a strategic disadvantage for TLO, more so than anything else. Macro-wise, totally fine. Micro-wise, totally fine. Not really noticing any slip-ups in that regard. Just strategically, the build he's playing is very Heart of the Swarm. Which came out in 2013, which is about 7 years ago. Quick math, that is about 7 years ago. Yeah, it's just not the... Yeah, so Lurkers are obviously going to absolutely destroy roaches. This is not really a style that's commonly done anymore these days. The ultimate unit composition in this matchup in modern day StarCraft 2 is, well, Hydra, Lurker, Viper. Vipers being the absolute key, because once you get them out, yeah, the Lurkers are just... Or Lurkers are the absolute key here, because the Lurkers can just destroy the roaches. Vipers are real nice, too. Good control here by Scarlett. Yep. Yeah. That's a lot of Ravagers. So I think if TLO would have made half the Ravagers in this game and spent the money on teching up, this would have been A-okay. So now we're going into an infestation pit. It's finally done. Maybe we can go Hive and, yeah, build up towards something scary. Scarlett should attack right around the time that the Lurker upgrades are done. So this upgrade is actually a little bit late. This upgrade is also a little bit late. She's been dealing, though, with a very limited amount of gas. Trying to spend the money wisely, but ultimately she should arrive at a unit composition that is going to be pretty much impossible for TLO to stop. The absolute key, though, with the Lurkers here, with this incoming attack from Scarlett, is that she's going to have to park them in a place that the opponent is going to struggle... well, pushing them away from. So if she can get the Lurkers over here, that would be phenomenal. Similar locations as well on the other side. Any spot where it's almost like an intersection, right? Where all of the roaches of the player in red would compile together. Like that is where you want to put the Lurkers. And obviously Lurkers can't fire while they are, well, burrowed above ground. You know what I mean, right? They're burrowed above ground, right? So there's still a chance that, like, Ravagers can slow all of this down a bunch. With good, well, efficient corrosive bowels, but maybe a couple Vipers up in the air. There are still opportunities for TLO, but there's no denying that in a straight-up engagement, the army in blue is miles better. And Scarlett actually playing a very turtley type of game. Yeah. We're even gonna go into tunneling claws now. Don't hate it. Burrow coming up together with tunneling claws, so I guess the idea is to maybe send out the roaches and replace them with Hydras, but don't just sacrifice the roaches, but try to get some sort of value out of them. We've got ourselves 4 Vipers coming up right now, though, for TLO. So Blinding Cloud still works, of course, against Lurkers, and the same can be said as well for Abductions. This is actually a surprisingly competitive game. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised, but I really thought that this was going to be like a relatively one-sided match of StarCraft 2. Now, what is kind of funny, by the way, is that Scarlett is, of course, a Shopify Rebellions player, TLO is the team manager. So, you know, there is something to be said for absolutely trashing your manager in a game of competitive StarCraft. I don't want to read into this all too much, but maybe, you know, being nice also is not a terrible idea. We gotta know about the contract renewal. We need all the details now. Fungal? I mean, Fungal's gonna be nice. Put on your tinfoil hats, gamers. What do we think is going to happen? Well, that's a lovely fungal growth that's going to happen. We do see some abductions here. I mean, yoink. Lurkers are no longer available. Well, they're still here. Oh, corrosive piles connect. Scarlett quickly remaxing with a lot of roaches right now. This is only half of the army in blue, though, as the rest of them runs on over towards the natural. Natural expansion now gone. TLO trying to run back home. Denying the +3 is actually huge. Evo Chamber is not going to live. Scarlett attacking back down to Roach Ravager again, so we're gonna skip the Lurker play entirely, which I feel like is a little unnecessary, but I think she just wanted to deal with any sort of follow-up attack here from TLO with whatever means necessary, and apparently Roaches were the quickest thing to produce. Reinforcing units are now headed up north because of it. Tunneling Claws once more used. TLO realizes that this is not going to happen as he decides to GG out. TLO, by the way, running the Snoot Portrait. You see that? That's another player name that I have not heard in a very long time. Man, it'd be nice if Snoot was playing in this event. So let me actually list off the players participating in this tournament. So some of the names you will be very familiar with. So we have DnS, Harstem, absolute, well, ancient man, obviously. We have Mana, Showtime, Bjorn, Cure, Gumiho, Kalazur, Ryung, Lambo, Scarlett, and then TLO, of course. Bunny, Solar, Classic, and Hero. So those are all of the participants of the Boomer Bash. And obviously it's not just, you know, players that are semi-retired, or in TLO's case, well, no longer really professional gamers in the sense that they play tournaments. Players like, for example, Bjorn. Players like, for example, Bunny, Solar. I mean, a bunch of those names. They play in a lot of events right now. Would have been really fun to see some of the real old school names too, right? Like Idra, Huck, Snoot would be sick. There's a lot of really nice old school names. Maybe Wardy sent them an invitation, but I can't imagine that they are probably busy doing other things. And one thing I have noticed from a lot of pro gamers over the years is that the majority of them only want to play if they actually believe that they can win. So if you get invited into a tournament but you haven't played the game in a long time, I mean, playing for the fans, that's nice. Something to be said for that, but you're also going to, if you have an absolute garbage performance, maybe you don't want to mess with your legacy all too much. Anyway, Naniwa, Polt, Whitera. Good times. Good memories. This kind of feels like, you know how like sometimes there's like ex-football players or whatever that decide to play one of those boomer matches out on the field, and you're like, okay, this is fun to watch, I suppose. Let's hope they don't accidentally pull a muscle. The nice thing is about StarCraft is that, well, as long as you've played the game over there, if you play like 2 games a year, you can probably maintain your skill at least reasonably well, right? At least you won't be a complete, you know, newbie once more, right from the start. I know TLO does play every once in a while. Very rarely, I'm sure, but he still does play. And honestly, impressive performance. Not really noticing any crazy slip-ups. I can imagine if you were to ask some of the other names that I just mentioned, some of them will have literally not touched the game in over a decade. Okay. Bailing Nest coming up right now for Scarlett. Aiming for what seems to be a bit of a quicker strategy this time around. Keep in mind that in the previous game, that Bailing Nest was, well, super duper late. In this particular instance, she's rushing it out. It is built at the front, so it's not like she's hiding it. Overlord is relatively close, but TLO did not want to send that Overlord too far forward. Zerglings right now see it, though. And that's going to allow TLO some moments here to defend. In the meantime, though, he's decided to go into an Evo chamber. So I guess this is some sort of all-in. Yeah. Maybe that was the original plan. I was thinking maybe +1 melee. Decides to go into missile now together with a Roach Warren. But this Evo chamber is actually misplaced. Should be a little bit further forward. Okay, we decide to wall it off with a second Evo chamber. That works, I suppose. Drones on the back of this, though, for Scarlett, as she is making some links. I'm assuming she will settle for killing the third hatchery here. Let's see. TLO doesn't yet have link speed. He's not researching it either. Scarlett is gonna try and see if she can get some good damage in. Losing the queens is actually it's really bad. Losing the queens is really not what you're looking for at all. Queens are kind of expensive these days. Inflation has hit the Zerg hive as well. Back in my day, the queen was 150 minerals. Get over it, TLO. We've had like 20% inflation across the board, okay? Jeez Louise. Well, he needs them because larvae are absolutely critical here. Drone is going to attempt moving on over towards the 12 o'clock position again. Rebuild the third hatch. Bunch of slow Zerglings. Yeah, not going to be very useful here for the base defense. A few roaches get surrounded. And this is the absolute worst case scenario when you're opening roaches. You really are not supposed to be losing them. Roaches get really good against Zerglings when the Zerglings can no longer do like a wraparound against like one layer of roach. When you have like a clump of roaches, oh, another cancel. Yeah, when you have like a clump of roaches and you can't get the surface area with the Zerglings anymore, then suddenly roaches will absolutely destroy links. But at this point in time, we're not really there yet. This is by far the best way to start a ZVZ. This is mostly just a macro focus built by Scarlett. Once more, keeping a bunch of lings around the map. Forcing the roaches in red to now defend this too. I guess we have a lair for TLO, so that's something nice. Scarlett, though, already sitting at 56 drones of her own. And she's now making roaches. A whole load of them too. We should see roach speed. That's the only thing that's missing. Maybe we're also a little bit late on the 5th gas geyser. But other than that, all of this is looking really nice. This is honestly a desperation attack from TLO, trying his very best. His heart is going to sink though when he sees that this base is saturated and he gets a glimpse of some of the drones. I think he already could smell though that there were indeed a lot of workers out for the opponent. So he's decided to go for a very quick 4th base. So this is effectively now a double expand, but a very risky one. Scarlett decided to, for some reason, skip roach speed. I don't really understand why. Very useless. We certainly should not be skipping it. But, I mean, we have the speed zones over here on the right side of Persephone. This map, by the way, 2nd place in the TLMC. Pretty cool. You love to see it. Gold base over here on the right, of course, and there are a lot of expansions to take. I think Scarlett is waiting for roach speed before she wants to go for an attack. Yeah, she just checked. So normally you line up the roach speed together with the +1 missile. She was waiting for those upgrades to finish, checked how close they were to being done, and then realized, wait a second, I never started it. So we're still going to commit to a push. And it may still just win the game. Problem is, though, when you're pushing with slow roaches against an opponent who does have Glio or Constitution done, you can't really go home. You can't really retreat. Now, I've got a feeling that Scarlett has the numbers to just continuously fight, and apparently at this point she even has the numbers to split up the units. If these roaches, though, in blue can just clear this hatchery out and trade half decently against the roaches in red, she's going to be A-okay. And actually, she's now sending the reinforcing units also across the map. A lot of roaches on the right side trying to take the highway. Turns out they're taking the highway in one of those, like, ancient... There's no safety belts. There's nothing here, okay? These are old roaches. They're not very fast, but at least they can run. Scarlett waiting for all of the units to hopefully fight at the same time. A spine crawler has been moved to the front. An ambitious spine crawler. Cute play by TLO. Knocking down the rocks there. I mean, this is the best angle you're ever going to get here, STLO, but it's not going to be enough. Alrighty, next up, we find ourselves... Wait, what's this map called again? I forgot. Frostline, of course. Next up, we find ourselves on Frostline. And spawning right here in the bottom left-hand corner in game number 1 of this best of 3, we have none other than Scarlett, of course. Her opponent, though, this time around, we have the Frenchman, DnS. Haven't actually seen too many of DnS's games as of late either. I believe he mentioned that... I don't really know exactly if I'm mixing players up here, but I believe I heard him say that he has been studying over in France, but don't quote me on that. He does still play, and he does still compete in tournaments. So this should be a pretty competitive match. Still, of course, one of the highest ranked European pro gamers. At least when it comes to playing with the pro species. Although, obviously, over the last couple of years, players like MaxSpecs have really stolen the show, but DnS has been around for a very long time. How old is DnS? Let me look into this real quick. 28! Okay, so DnS just barely able to participate in this tournament. But it will be allowed. It's interesting, actually, when you look at his Wikipedia results, a lot of the matches are up against other French people. Like, for example, Showdown, Clem, Denver, Drogo, Crow. There's a lot of players out there over in France. But Clem, of course, by far the most successful. Actually, the French community in StarCraft 2 is one of those hardcore gaming communities. If you're only ever exposed to the English world of StarCraft, you might not be aware that there is actually a very, you're probably aware of the fact that there's like a Korean-speaking audience out there, but there's a very large crowd that loves watching French broadcasts. There's a lot of Spanish, Portuguese, there's Russian. There's a whole lot of different languages out there that, well, content gets produced for as well. It's actually really nice because the French people have always been big fans, obviously, for their hometown heroes, right? They've always been looking for one of the top tier contenders. And many times they got close. Like, they've had some good players in France, but then Mr. Clem came up. And, well, now the world champion of StarCraft. They got themselves a good one. Alright, it's going to be a Stargate build here for DnS. Like I said, I haven't really seen too many of DnS's games lately. I'm not exactly sure in how much he's been participating. Likewise, haven't really seen a lot of Scarlett, so not exactly sure what their tendencies are in this matchup right now. Honestly, at this point, I feel like a lot of the pro gamers are of the age of 28 and above. I mean, maybe not the... What about Serral? How old is Serral? I think Serral's like maybe 26? Serral's 26, yeah. Not a boomer yet. Not allowed to play in the boomer bash. 28? That will we be okay with, but 26, nah. No Clem in this. Honestly, this is mostly just a tournament that is discriminating against Clem and discriminating against MaxSpecs. Those are the players participating in everything, and they win like 80% of the tournaments out there. Maybe that's what this tournament format from Wardy truly is about, man. He's kind of sick and tired of casting Clem versus MaxSpecs finals because they happen like twice a week minimum. He's like, you know what? I'll come up with a tournament format where they can't be participating. I mean, Raynor can't play, but he wouldn't really play anyway. Serral can't play, but he wouldn't really play anyway. Maru, he wouldn't be able to play in this tournament either. But let's be real, he wouldn't really play anyway. I think Marty probably would have liked it if somebody like Bjorn also didn't sign up. Because Bjorn still participates in all of the things. Dark also not playing in this one, actually. Word on the StarCraft street has it, believe it or not, and apparently this time around it's for real, that Dark's military service is now truly beginning. Now, I feel like I've heard this exact thing about 17 times over the last 4 years. But supposedly right now it's like, it's here. Like, supposedly it's done. I haven't seen like an official announcement as of me casting this. And I don't know if there will be an official announcement either. But we may very well be losing Dark in the near future. Although again, I have heard that many, many times over the last couple years. +1 melee here quickly from Scarlett. Preparing for a Stalker follow-up. Oracle Adept harassment right now, well underway. handful of workers so far, but not amazing. Okay. 4. Yeah, spore crawlers are so scary these days. A little bit easier if you're a ladder hero to defend against that Oracle shenanigans, because spores are just so powerful against Oracles. So, 4 drones early on, totally fine. This is a very acceptable amount of losses here for Scarlett. And she agrees. She decides to now go into that vertical expansion here, straight into the 4th, right around the same time that DNS has just finished up his 3rd. We have a Templar Archives right now on the back of this, and actually quick charge. So, charge is kind of interesting. I guess that DNS, yeah, he saw that the opponent went for an Evo Chamber, and really the only reason to go for an Evo Chamber here this early is if you want to go for +1 melee, which is great against Stalkers, not so useful against Zealots. So I think DNS may have originally been planning maybe on going into Blink instead of melee with charge, but upon seeing the Evo Chamber, it's not such a bad choice. So this is going to be an Archon Zealot push. This is one of those things that you don't really have to micro very much. You just kind of attack move at the right moment and then cross your fingers and hope for the best. I think it's an excellent way of playing. It's the style that I personally like a lot when I play Protoss. Don't worry so much about Blink Stalker Micro, man. Like, technically Blink Stalker Micro is an excellent way to play, and it's extremely, you know, extremely high skill ceiling. There's a lot of potential. But it's also very difficult to play well. There's not a whole lot more juice that you can squeeze out of a Zealot Archon attack. Roaches are coming, though, right now for Scarlett. She does have +1 melee done. Still obviously useful. No Bailing Nest or anything like that. +1 missile right now on the back of this. Honestly, the amount of Zealots here is not really that big. Zergling counterattack as well, attempted on the other side of the map. DNS not quite using the all-army hotkey to send all of those units out. Oracle should be able to defend that. How about this push over here, though, in the natural? I don't really mind this for Scarlett at all. Good juggling here. Yep, snatching the Archons up. Oh, oh, all right. Getting a bit more value in. Oh. Scarlett, what? I only just now realized that she made 1 Dropper Lord to save the queens. Yes, queen. Very nice. Well, 3 of them still died, which is a little bit unfortunate, but at the very least having yeah, 1 Dropper Lord, if you see that attack coming in from a mile away, it's not that expensive. Not a bad choice. Well, now, right now here, the unit has been pulled away from the wall off. Immortal, is there a Warp Prism nearby? I don't know where the Prism is. Oh, there it is. Finally shows up here, too. But that is already a lot of units down the drain. Suddenly a big, well, Roach Zergling counterattack. This is +1 finishing up here soon. Just +1 melee. So really just a low-tech attack here from Scarlett. Trying to just deal with a lot of stuff is DNS, and it's not so easily done. 13 probes have gone down. Keep in mind that we saw that 4th hatch a long time ago, but the 4th hatch never really got any drones on it. Scarlett trying to see if she can potentially obtain the victory right here, right now, but I think DNS should be able to stabilize. Yeah, Archons are by far the most important unit here to have. Preferably, though, you want to have the Immortals. Yeah. And losing 1 of them was a little bit unfortunate. They're expensive, they take a long time to produce. They're the ultimate weapon here against these Roach armies. And even though DNS does shoot us away eventually, this is not a very comfortable position. Because what do you do right now here if you're the Protoss player? Scarlett has let her foot off the gas for just a second. +2 missile coming up. No drones that were produced in addition to the ones that we already had. So just 66 workers here for the Canadian Zerg. I think she's just gonna continuously try to hit this Protoss player on the head. Just hit him on the head. Use the Roaches as a hammer. Yeah, a lot of Ravagers. Just drop the gas. And just send in the skeletons. I mean, it's going to be expensive, though. And once we got up to, like, a 3rd Immortal, at, like, triple Immortal, then, yeah, this becomes a little bit finicky. Not a ton of buffer here for these expensive Protoss units. Scarlett trying to see if she can find an angle where maybe the service area is not going to be so bad. Big Zealot Warp in here attempted as well. It is going to complete, but I think the numbers for the Zerg player are just too big now. A couple of Zerglings here also working on some probes. And that is making this entire attack justifiable. GG. Scarlett wins game number 1. You know what I just realized? All of the participants for this particular tournament, they were not just born in the 90s. They weren't just born in the last century. They were born in the last millennium. Ugh, dude. That's back when they had like black and white television and all that, right? That's crazy. They had like rotary phones and like fax machines and stuff. Ugh. You know what? I do remember using a rotary phone. Well, I could probably figure out how to operate a fax machine, but I've never sent a fax in my life. I know in some countries they still use fax machines regularly. At least I've been told this. Bye, guys, in Twitch chat. Germans. And apparently in Japan as well, is what I've heard. One time I needed to get the hospital to send like a medication type of thing to my local pharmacy because for some reason the digital system wasn't working. That is the only use case of fax machines that I've ever seen in my life. And I've heard that since then, this was like 2 years ago, they have abandoned that system as well. Yeah, apparently you're no longer, you don't have to have a mandatory fax machine anymore at the pharmacy. How sad. But DnS and Scarlett, both gamers that may have very well written a check once upon a time. They may have very well been proud owners of a Nokia 3310 once upon a time. They may very well remember the day that the Game Boy Color came out once upon a time. To be fair, Game Boy Color was a bit of a banger. Let's be real. Game Boy Advance, maybe? I'm not exactly sure about the time. Game Boy Advance is another banger. Very good games. Anyways. Now they're, you know, boring millennials. They probably get excited over, like, cordless vacuums or something. Although I got a cordless vacuum some time ago. Highly recommend it. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm in the same age group. It's yeah, very nice. Highly recommend. Anyways, I'm talking about absolute nothing. Stargate opener once more here from DnS. No surprise there. Oracle coming in. Cordless vacuums definitely are a little bit overpowered. I hope the IRL devs don't nerf them. I do have like a robot vacuum too, but the problem is I have 2 cats, and my cats booby trap my vacuum all the time. So like when Bob, our Roomba, wants to make his rounds, I used to have him on a schedule, so he would like turn on every day when I was doing my live stream, and it was awesome. But then we got cats, and my cats just put stuff in front of the vacuum. There's like, hey, here's something that will absolutely tangle up the entire device. Let me just put it right in front of the thing. Ooh, well, that's one of the structures you can put in your mineral light. Not sure why we made that instead of a spore. Maybe it was bigger and scarier, and therefore Scarlett hoped that DnS would run away. Okay. I need a robot vacuum that has like a little hand, like a little grabby hand that can just take stuff off of the floor before it does its thing. That would be excellent. I would like that very much. +1 melee once more here for Scarlett. A robo facility also coming up here for DnS. So rather than a Twilight Council, we're making the switch towards a quick robo. Not exactly sure what the plan behind this is, to be honest. It feels a little bit random. Okay, Observer into Immortal. We're queuing them up. Fair enough. This is going to take the wind out of the sails of Protoss quite a bit, though. I guess we're just going to try and play a macro game now. Fair enough. DNS trying to get some value with the Adepts. Ah, we're going quick double robo with Colossi. Fair enough. I mean, this is certainly a Ling Bane based army. Scarlett actually skipping the Roach Warren this time around in favor of a Baneling Nest. So +1 melee obviously will affect Zerglings, but also Banelings. Technically nicer to have than Roaches, but Roaches are always... Oh, losing an Oracle there. Roaches are always a good backbone to the Zerg army. Good pool on the drones. One more worker going down, I would imagine. Yep, 4 workers here in total for those Adepts. Not amazing. Scarlett is holding down the drone button at this point. +2 melee also queued up. But already on the other side of the map, the big boys are coming. Walking skyscrapers that can shoot lasers. Scarlett does see the timing there of that Immortal, and that Immortal is a little bit funky. Why would we be expecting an Immortal already at this point in time? Hydra then does come up right now on the back of this. I would not mind seeing a safety Roach Warren. It feels a bit weird to be sitting on an army composition like this, and then, well, it kind of feels like a step down, you know, or like maybe like a lateral step, a step sideways to Roaches, but I think Roaches here are still, like a Roach Warren is still very useful. Well, she sees right now that there is a Robo Bay, and that the Robo Bay is doing its little finger dance over here. The Robo Bay definitely remembers the finger skateboards. From the... Was this early 2000s? I don't remember anymore, but I remember really thinking that finger skateboards were like the coolest thing ever. I think a Robo Bay would be very good at it. It's going to be researching the ranged, obviously. So, range for the Colossi. Scarlett does not seem to care. Apparently, she just wants to make Hydras and Zerglings. Now, Hydras and Zerglings both take a tremendous amount of damage from Colossi. So, I'm liking this spot here for DNS quite a bit. DNS basically just saying, yo, let's play passive games instead. Losing the Oracles is a little rough, though. Yeah. I mean, this is by no means the greatest opener. Oh, okay. Scarlett's basically saying, yo, you're never gonna attack me. So I will make like 100 drones. Fair enough. She's now sitting at 90 workers. And I guess the idea is that Protoss is never going to attack when they're making Colossi and then they're going into the 4th Nexus at this point in time. I don't really know exactly if I agree with that. There's a real chance that DNS is gonna go for a push long before maxing out. Now, indeed, if DNS decides to sit here and just let the Zerg player also get away with all of this greed, then it's going to be fine for Zerg. But this attack that DNS has in the making right now can hit like an absolute truck. Zergling counterattack? I think it's mostly just here to try and get those units to return back home. Yeah. Baneling's coming up. Scarlett actually preparing an awful lot of army here just to try and stay alive. This is one of those fights, though, where the Zerg would benefit if the entirety of the fight is about 5 seconds. At most. The shorter the fight, the better. Because the more shots those Colossi fire, the better it's going to be for Protoss. Storm coming up right now. Archons are building. I'm assuming we're going to go into Lurkers and Vipers eventually. Although the Baneling speed feels like a strange, again, lateral step. Big Zergling counterattack, though. And this really has got potential. Those units hit hard with +2 melee. DNS mostly just trying to take control of the bridge. Now recalling those units. Oh, we've sent them over towards the right side. Colossi are going to be amazing. Okay, we're actually just chilling. So we're actually just going Fleet Beacon. We're actually just getting Storm. DNS is saying, yo, this is nice and all to have a Zerg opponent, but I'm basically playing tower defense with some complications here. The complications called Zerg. We're not doing any sort of timing attacks or any, well, really committed push. We're just hanging out. We're just making some units. Slowly teching up towards a death ball. I never really liked this playstyle very much. I think it's a bit lame. It's very strong, but not very strategic. And ultimately, this is a strategy game after all. But it has potential to work. At the highest level of StarCraft, though, it tends to fall flat. Couple Immortals here mispositioned. They just popped out of the Robo facilities. Scarlett decides to target it down, but still takes a bit of damage too. Zergling run by in the meantime on the right side. Zealot run by in the meantime on the left side. Scarlett going into an Ultra Cavern. Alright. You have to be ultra confident to make one of those. I think a Lurker then is a much better choice. Okay, she cancels the Ultra Cavern. I was just about to shout about the Ultras being a garbage choice. And apparently she could hear me from the future. Ultras, I mean, in general, I think the unit is very mediocre. Without armor upgrade, which is really like their biggest strength. Without Evo chamber upgrades, without the armor upgrade in the Evo, you just don't get value out of them at all. Even with chitinous plating, I mean, you're just gonna get overwhelmed. There's already Immortals out. Sure, 2 of them just died, but 3 Immortals are still going to be able to, like, take care of, like, 7 Ultras. Mama ship coming up right now, too. Yeah, DNS is just going full death ball. So the goal is not so much to try and build up a big economy or anything like that. We're basically just trying to make a bulldozer. Or as they call it in France, a dozer de boule. I think that's, I don't know, I have no idea what to say. Something like that, though. It's probably right. Zealot run by once more. Love the positioning here on the spines. Mama is just about to pop out. Mama! Ooh! Sorry. No, we should not do that. The Zealots are actually starting to put in some work, though. They originally couldn't achieve much over there, but the other bases are quite exposed. Oh man, I'm getting nervous. We get to meet the Mama ship. There she is. Don't be shy. Where are you going? Okay. Okay, she's a little shy. So, DNS has arrived. It's taken 12 minutes, but we've made it to the ball of units that we were aiming for. I don't know if he's feeling confident to just go in for a full counterattack. Scarlett has got some money, but not a ton. Keep in mind, of course, that the mothership is no longer abductable in 2025. And Hydras technically shoot up, but they're not the best weapon of choice. Now, this position, though, for Zerg is not bad. Yep, abducting units onto the bridge, getting the Lurkers pinned against this little chasm here. In the meantime, there was a counter-attack over here, too, killing 16 probes, and then also the Nexus. A couple of Banelings decide to wait off to the side, hoping for juicier targets. Ultimately, they don't find it. But that was expensive for DNS, who now also has lost a bunch of troops in the middle of the map, of course. I kind of feel, and I don't want to be disrespectful here, but I kind of feel like this is like a Master 1 strategy. This is something that falls flat on its face when you climb into Grandmaster League. It's just... there's no staying power with this particular Protoss playstyle. We have no plans other than trying to make a big army and then hoping for the win. Now, it works great on the ladder. I just don't have a lot of faith. When you're doing it against players like Scarlett, I don't think it should work. Depending on, obviously, how rusty Scarlett is. Doesn't seem to be too rusty, if I look at the games anyway. But this is just kind of like one of those... I'm just gonna cross my fingers and hope I can get there type of strategies, and not really a whole lot of stepping stones in between. Zerg gets to do whatever they like. The only pressure we've had on the other side of the map have been a couple of Zealot run-bys, but like maybe 10 Zealots in total. It just feels a little bit mediocre. Now, if Zerg would have gone Ultras, I think this would have worked out wonders, though. Luckily here for Scarlett, she did not decide to go Ultras. Oh, big Zergling run by here, too. Adept not in the right position. There was one, but it was just not in the correct spot. Zergling run by goes straight into the main base, and you blink twice. Yep, that's +3 Zerglings for you with Adrenal Glands. They tear through a mineral line in seconds. Oh, and even the +1 air weapons is going to get denied, it looks like. That's... oh, maybe? Yeah, it got denied. That's gonna make the 3 Tempest over here, and then the Mama ship herself a little bit weaker, too. Yeah, this is... it's not now. This is not a cool playstyle. I don't like this Protoss playstyle very much. It's one of those things that can work out wonders. But, Scarlett definitely the better player here. It's just not even particularly close. DNS now has to go for some sort of desperation attack. But there's too many things that went wrong here. And while it's still technically winnable, this is just not a very powerful army. The storms will have to be perfect. I mean, this is still a scary force, though, from Protoss. 46 workers only, so DNS is now into a committed all-in. Scarlett still doesn't have the easiest army to control here by any stretch of the imagination. Cloaking here is also very handy. We do have a couple Overseers, but they are going to get sniped now. Cloak, though, is going to run out, and it will be on cooldown for the next half minute or so. Zergling run by in the meantime up north. It's going to deny that base once more. DNS now finding himself with even less workers. I don't think we go to the side, DNS. I think we go for the throat. I don't think there's really a chance to, like, try and, you know, finesse our way to a good... there's no way. The longer you wait, the worse it's gonna be. Okay. Mass recall, the reinforcing Archons towards the front. Okay. That's DNS smashing his piggy bank. Getting some additional Archons in the mix. Yeah. At this point, Protoss is bleeding out. Scarlett is going to be able to remax here, and she's trying to do so with gas-heavy units. Very tempting right now to just spam an additional 20 supply worth of Zerglings. But that's not what she's really doing. Trying to just make more Lurkers here, maybe more Vipers. It will ultimately be good. Another Zergling run by, heading on up north. Additional Archons showing up. You can tell here that this Protoss army still is to be respected. Brute Lords would have been kind of nice in this sort of scenario. I think Scarlett could have had those out by now. Either way, if the Vipers can continue fishing, one little unit at a time, it should be winnable. Okay, DNS decides to commit. Big storm onto all of those Lurkers. Another big storm. Just not enough meat. No, not enough meat to this Protoss army. And even though the Hydra, not the best weapon against the mothership, it turns out they didn't need to kill the mothership, as Scarlett obtains the victory. GG.